All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, and I want to welcome you back to part 2 of a 4-part series here on the channel where I'm sharing different segments from a recent podcast with Justin from The Honest Drink. Now in this episode, we will be debunking one of the largest myths surrounding the country of China, talking about this savior complex, the need for Western countries to try to save China. And finally, we're going to be ending it with talking a little bit about China's meritocracy system. Without further ado, let's jump into the podcast and let you guys have a listen.
There's this common myth, right? And, talking about Chinese myths, there's this common myth that, Chinese people are just blocked off from any outside information. And obviously, yes, a lot of Western sites are censored here. A lot of Western social media is censored here. That's true.
Yeah.
But the
100%.
idea that they're kind of completely blocked off from like outside worldly information and news is preposterous. I mean, I live here in Shanghai, and I can tell you myself that I watch Fox News, I watch CNN, I watch MSNBC, I watch The Hill, I even seen OAN, you know what I mean? And of course, I'm on YouTube all the time, social media. And obviously, okay, you can do that through VPN, but a lot of that news still gets through, even from Chinese broadcasts, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
Chinese people, and I've talked to them, they are very savvy and up to date on American news and American politics, current events there. I mean, they know all about it. So it's
100%.
So this idea that they're kind of like in the dark and, if only we can reach them and show them the light is really preposterous.
It is, and we always say that's the savior mentality, right? And that is the argument that I have gotten into on Twitter and on YouTube with some people before, just talking exactly about that. And I made this analogy in some previous videos of just talking about, many people in the West, I think because of the name of communism. Communism is a word that is feared in America. It is a word that is, I personally think people equate it with being 100% evil. So I mean, as soon as you hear communism, I mean, the worst images pop up into your mind. And I mean, we are taught, from a very early age in America, that anything communist cannot be trusted. It is bad. It is evil. And I think I've always said, I think China really needs to potentially go through, I think they need to rename the party, because it's not really a communist country in that sense. It's communist by name. We know it better as socialism with Chinese characteristics. I think there's a lot more capitalism and freedoms that are allowed in China's system than what that archaic term, that unfortunately is a stereotype in America that many people simply just assume. And I think especially growing up in Florida, right? I mean, we're very close to, 90 miles away from Cuba. And, we're taught of the Cuban history and the fact that, look, these people have nothing. Communism ruined their lives. This entire country is just basically destitute, and there's no hope down there in Cuba because of Fidel Castro. And again, this is why we have democracy, and this is why America's number one. That's the lesson that I learned, growing up in America. But I agree with you, and that about as far as, there's many reasons that there's censorship in China, but it's amazing how well versed the Chinese are on the political situation in America. I mean, every Chinese person knows that we have the freedom of speech in America. I mean, they know that we have a democratic system. They know that we can vote for our president. They know that you can protest in America. I mean, they're not stupid. They have these insights. And I always say it's like, I unfortunately, because of its communism, we automatically assume that China is exactly like North Korea. And this is, this is the biggest interesting thing is I see, when Americans go down this road and they start lecturing me on this is what's happening in China. I'm like, no, you've got the wrong country. Everything you've just described, that's North Korea. And North Koreans, they're blocked from the world. They have no idea what's going on in America. They have no idea about freedoms and all of these things, and they have a very low quality of life and, food problems and all of this stuff, that the country you've just described is North Korea. So that country does exist. It's just not called China,
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. We talk about, often we talk about the economic rise of China and how, it's booming economically and people are earning more money and the middle class is growing and stuff like that. And I feel like for most people, most kind of thoughtful people, when you say that, they're like, yeah, I can understand that. I see that. I know that. But it's still an evil country, right? So it's like, yeah, economically the country is doing good, but it's still evil. And the whole goes back to that whole idea that we're kind of brainwashed with growing up especially in a country like America, but even in its ally countries, is the red commies, the Red Scare. It's the Cold War mentality of communism is this evil thing. And I equate it to, I see the democratic ideology as kind of like Christianity during the Crusades, right?
Right.
And that's not to say anything negative about democracy or Christianity, right? I mean, it works. The thing is, when you try to launch a crusade where you're trying to spread this ideology, just like the Christians were, to other people that didn't worship the Christian God and went to war with basically any group or community or nation that wasn't worshiping their God or their ideology, they were viewed as barbarians. They were viewed as the enemy. They were just not godly people. They were savages.
Right.
And that was the idea of kind of spreading Christianity around. I kind of really see, honestly, I don't think it's that even extreme to draw parallels between that kind of crusade with how America and its allies view democracy. I mean, they are trying to force a system of government on the entire world and using it as a shield of like, well, this is this is freedom. This is your liberty. This is freedoms, right? And I saw this video. I saw a clip, and I forgot who said it. I wish I can name the source right now. But to kind of echo what they said, which I thought was really, really spot on, was that, let's say Americans, when we think of freedom, when we think of things like human rights, we think of being able to put your ballot in the ballot box, being able to vote for your president. We think of free speech. These are things that we as Americans value as what represents freedom to us, right?
Correct.
And that's great. And he's like, well, the Chinese, they have a different definition of what they value as freedoms for them. What freedom means to them is being able to have a job, being able to put food on the table and not starve, right?
Absolutely.
Being able to own a house, being able to go to school and being safe in their country where they don't have to worry about gun violence and being shot on the street. And, and so kind of like a lifestyle and quality of life, things that have to do with that is what they see as freedom. So,
Correct.
and I think that was absolutely spot on. And that really aligns with my experience here. When you ask, most Chinese people, like, what is your freedoms? They want to know that they can get a job and get paid and provide for their family and get a house and do what they want to do. And for them, whether to be kind of political or to be able to vote or quote unquote have freedom of speech, which Chinese people do have freedom of speech. It's not like they don't. Is not like the top of their priority list. They have different priorities than, let's say, American values. And that's just a difference. It's not good or bad or right or wrong or, it's just different values. So
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more on that. And the fact is, and that's what I always say, that it is so important to understand when we're talking about United States and China relationship, is that there is a tremendous amount of cultural elements that come into play here. And I never forget, I had a close a Chinese family that I knew in Shanghai, and their oldest son, he went to America for 1 year, for university, came back. And I remember seeing him after 1 year. And I said, what was your experience? How did you like America? What's the biggest takeaway that you had? And, the first thing he said to me is like, there's too much freedom in America. That like there's, and I was like, wow, like
that's so counterintuitive, right? For a Westerner.
Yeah, it is. Right. And, it really made me like, wow, that's a very deep statement, very simple, but very deep statement. And, and I think for him, his mindset was very much in the same mentality. I mean, again, like he was at a very nice university. I think he was in Chicago somewhere. He was in a good university, obviously a great opportunity for him, for his future career, obviously to go to America. But again, like you had said, it comes down to different things. For example, I mean, I grew up in Florida. I have some friends that very much value the Second Amendment. I mean, they're absolutely adamant about owning a gun and just thinking that is what provides them a very high feeling of safety, and knowing that they can have a gun in their car, they can have a gun in their house, they can fire it, they can go to shooting ranges, and that's a freedom that I have as an American. Chinese people, they don't value owning a gun. For them, it's like, well, why do we need guns for protection if we just live in a society that doesn't have guns? And we don't need guns, problem solved. And so again, I mean, you have a very big cultural difference. I mean, obviously it's impossible to get guns out of society in America. So I guess you can make the argument that, well, maybe you do need a gun in America because there's guns everywhere. Again, like when we talk about the voting, and people argue all the time, Cyrus, one man, one vote. It's the best system. It's the most fairest system. It's the best. But again, China just doesn't value that, because at the end of the day, I think I remember Chinese asking me, like, is it true? Like, you're an American, you can actually vote for the president of the United States? Absolutely. Yeah, that is certainly a right that I have as an American citizen. And I remember the Chinese was like, that must be a very difficult decision. I mean, that is such an important decision for your country. You must be doing a lot of research, like trying to figure out, like, what is their experience? What is the plans? I mean, sure, they have like different plans they want to propose. You've got to compare, you've got to analyze. I mean, you probably need to do a lot of research. I'm like, you're very smart, because ideally, yes, it should have a lot of research but it actually is more of a popularity contest. Like, what do you mean? Well, it essentially comes down to, like, I like this dude. He's saying something really cool. Like, I like him. And I said, look, this is why Donald Trump won the 2016 election. I mean, hands down. I mean, experience wise, he had no experience compared to Hillary Clinton. I mean, she's a career politician. She was really destined to be the first female president of the United States. But the thing is, she's not entertaining. I mean, she's very boring. I mean, she's your standard, career politician, if you will. And I think when you look at Donald Trump, he was able to immediately resonate with the people in America. Why? Because he just spoke like an average American. He wasn't that polished, distinguished politician that we're so used to seeing all the time, right? You watch Joe Biden, on stage. I mean, he's been doing this for 47 years. You know what you're going to get, but Donald Trump, you never knew what you're going to get.
It was entertainment. It was great.
And it was 100% entertainment. And the average person can identify with that in America. And so, yeah, I said, yeah, if you think that we're looking at, their resumes and their credentials and trying to really determine who's going to be the best president, it doesn't work out like that. For 99% of the voters, they're going to go on, who they like better, and again, like, this is why Donald Trump won, and I think that was something that I had mentioned as well as, it's been interesting these last few years, I think, for China's government, as America, we had, and I'm not going to get into politics if you like Donald Trump or not, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, he was the president, he's not anymore. But I think that, there were certainly some rocky times for America during that time. And I think you saw a lot of people in China saying, it's really good. We have a good system here. Like, it's a system based on meritocracy. The only way that you can rise inside the Communist Party of China is you have to have proven results. I mean, look at the resume of Xi Jinping. I mean, it's pretty impressive what he has done in his career. And again, his father was a high-ranking communist official. That did not help Xi Jinping at all. I mean, he started at the bottom and worked his way up. It took him 37 years in order to him to become the president of China. Looking at the different works. I mean, he spent a lot of time in the Fujian province doing a lot of deals with Taiwan. And I mean, everything is, it's very much. And I think you know this analogy as far as a company, right? If Steve Jobs is getting ready to leave Apple, we're not going to have an election. Hey, who wants to be the next CEO? You're going to bring in somebody, Tim Cook, he's been groomed for this position. He has the experience, the credibility. This guy is the time. I mean, you can't get anybody to just run Apple. I mean, you're going to need somebody very qualified. And this is exactly what China is doing, bringing in high level people, very qualified, great resumes, extensive experience. And again, the only way that you're moving up in that system is you got to produce the results.
Everybody, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join me here on YouTube. I have parts 3 and 4 coming up in the next couple of days. I look forward to sharing you more segments and more talk with Justin from The Honest Drink. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, click the bell for notifications, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video.